As an Ohioan, I have a hankering for maple syrup. As we all know, much like Canadians, 90% of our blood is made of this stuff. And so today, I want to talk about the process behind making, refining, creating 100% real Ohio maple syrup. Or maple syrup in general, or Amish country maple syrup, whatever the hell you want to call it. I want to talk about maple syrup. And if you've never had real maple syrup, well,
good luck!
Once you've had a little bit, you'll never go back. It's way different than the cheap store brand stuff. And me, my Pep, and his buddies, well, okay, mostly them, I help a little bit too here and there, make maple syrup. We boil it. Big old process for that. And I want to share that with you all, show you how it's made, so to speak. The entire process of how it goes from maple tree sap all the way down to 100% real, wonderful maple syrup. A lot of sap is needed to make maple syrup. For instance, we have long-standing maple trees. So what does that mean? Well, it means they're just about 200 years old, and their sugar content is 3.8%, give or take. However, that's kind of meaningless, I suppose. However, that's a little hard to understand. So, for every 23 gallons of sap we harvest, we can refine that into 1 gallon of maple syrup. That's a lot of sap to make a lot of syrup. As stated before, it's a group effort. It's not just us, though we do donate our fair share of sap. We collect a lot. The question is, how do we collect it? Well, you gotta tap a tree, so that involves attaching a bag to the tree, making a little hole and sticking something in it to funnel all that sap into the bag. We use bags, not buckets. And we have some good reasons for this. Bags are really cheap. They don't fly off of the tree when it's windy. They're much more sanitary than buckets. They're easy to use, and along with that, we can just throw them out at the end of the year. We don't have to store them. Unlike buckets, which take up a bunch of space, are really expensive, get bugs and bark and detritus inside of the sap all the time, and blow off the trees when it's windy. They're also really heavy and kind of suck. Some might say it's wasteful. I say most of you have never had to make maple syrup, so you don't know what it's like hauling buckets full of sap everywhere. It's surprisingly heavy. Don't diss it till you try it. I would highly recommend the bags if you're going to make maple syrup. It's so much easier. In any case, once a sap bag is bulging, is full, is gonna burst, we go around with buckets and the side-by-side. Process goes like this. Dump the bag into a bucket. Dump the bucket into this massive holding tank on the side-by-side. Now, this holding tank is just about 75 gallons. And let me tell you, it's way better than hauling buckets back and forth to the next part. Once the side-by-side tank is full, that gets dumped into a 500-gallon drum, which, when that's full, it gets hauled to the sugar shack. So we have these dotted all around our house, near where the largest concentrations of our maple trees are, for easy filling. Now, this sugar shack isn't ours, belongs to a friend, and a lot of his friends, including us, bring syrup there, as I keep saying. And this is where most of the magic happens. Though, believe it or not, I would say the hardest part of the process is done. Man, it sucks collecting sap. In any case, before I go on about the actual refinement process, I'm going to be mentioning this over and over, so I'll get the explanation out of the way now. The majority of the refining process, from sap to syrup, is removing as much water as possible from the sap. We got to get that water out so nothing but the maple sugar is left. At least, that's the goal. So to begin that process, those 500-gallon drums are dumped into a long steel trough that's just about 3,500 gallons. And if that's full, which it sometimes is, there are 2 2,000-gallon drums available for us to pour excess sap into, and we can open and close and add it to the trough if need be. Now, the sap from this trough is slowly filtered through several totes we have lined up. And the whole goal is to filter out as much detritus, bugs, bark, whatever else, badness, out of the sap as possible. Nothing will be left inside of it after this. It'll just be nice, pure sap. From there, it's sent inside to a reverse osmosis system. And this gets rid of quite a lot of water. The goal is to have just about 11% sugar inside of the sap by the time it's out of this system. And after it's out of the system, it goes to the preheat cycle, or the pre-boil. The goal of the pre-boil is to get roughly 80% to 90% of the way done. And this is done by boiling the sap. The temperature of this boil is just about 212 degrees Fahrenheit, around there. And this gets rid of a lot of water. That water vapor is collected and used to clean out the tanks and wash our hands. Fun fact, this water is pure distilled water. Nothing inside of it, nice, clean, and sterile. Really useful. Now on to the final boil. It's all dumped into a steel tank and heated to 217 degrees Fahrenheit. And this gets rid of all the rest of the water we can possibly try to get rid of. The sap that goes into this comes out maple syrup. And it's pumped through a tube to the bottling tank. Before it goes actually through the tube to the bottling tank, it's filtered one last time. Though, that's just to catch anything that happens to get through. Which really nothing is. Now, the bottling tank is a tank filled with boiling hot maple syrup with a little spigot. And all of the bottles are filled by hand. The heat seals each bottle, as well as sterilizes it. There are no bacteria surviving with how hot this boiling maple syrup is. So by this point, we have maple syrup. After the syrup is actually created and bottled, everyone gets their fair share of it, right? Everyone helped, everyone brought sap, everyone gets syrup based on the amount of sap they bring. In any case, from here, it's ours to do with what we will. I know he sells it in 50-gallon drums to various people. However, it's more profitable to sell it in quantities in between pints to gallons. Which, it is 100% pure syrup. It's a huge labor-intensive process. As you've all heard by now, it's not easy to create large quantities of maple syrup. This year, a gallon of maple syrup would go for $60, give or take. So I know we sell some of the syrup we get from this. We keep a fair bit for ourselves, and we give a lot away to friends and family too. A fine gift considering its price, and its taste, quite honestly. Syrup is great. Like I said, once you've tried natural maple syrup, the fake stuff, it doesn't hold a candle to it. Oh, it is good. And the taste will vary based on the trees too. You can have dark maple syrup, light maple syrup. To me, they all kind of taste the same. Well, the natural stuff, that is. However, some people will claim there's a difference in between them, and while they're probably right, I know ours is super sweet just due to the type of trees we have. Using buckets and bags and 50-gallon drums is not the only way to collect sap. Now, my cousins have a low-pressure vacuum system, and what that means is there is this kind of spider web of tubing connected to all of their maple trees, and a vacuum sucks all of the sap into a holding tank, which is then fed into their smaller refinery. They have soft maple trees, meaning their sugar content is just about 1%, but they can still make a lot of syrup just due to how easy it is to collect the sap. It's a different process. Their trees, like I said, are different. They're soft maples, but their forest is really dense, so they can create a lot of sap. You do not need all this fancy equipment to make maple syrup. This is just making it on a massive scale, right? Making a lot of syrup you need all this for. No. To make a little bit, you don't need all this. My dad's been doing this for just about 15 years now, and only 4 of those years we've been involved in the large-scale sap collection process. All you really need is a stove, some pots and pans, and a way to measure temperature. And you can create maple sap in your kitchen. However, your house will be very humid, it will smell very sweet, and your kitchen will become very messy and sticky. So, considering how much we love maple syrup, our current process is a lot better than just doing it in our kitchen like we used to. Though, it's a lot of fun to do it that way. Thinking on it, my dad also makes maple candy. So, maybe if there's enough interest in this video, I'll make a follow-up where I show you the process on making maple candy. And so with that, thank you all for watching. I've been Sam,
you forgot the most important part.
Heretic begs for forgiveness. Maple sanctum defiled.
Come on, Queen, for the rules.
Maple dance failed. Redemption necessary.
I am currently hitting the griddy.
Put him up, you little pipsqueak.
Maple dance complete. Maple nut cookies. For now.